I have to be honest with you, Mr. Cologne, we read a lot of files. In the many years that I've been here, I've read a lot of files, none as disturbing as this, none. This was beyond horrific. This things that you see staged in a horror film, never in real life. I can't possibly imagine what all the parties involved, but most especially the victim's family, goes through reliving this in their head, what it must have been like, this offense, and your own family included. I suppose if you truly can't remember, you're the lucky one, right?
No, I'm not.
Well, to have to replay this in your head over and over. I read about the injuries, and it's just unimaginable. We read all of the details, and it was a very difficult task. I have to tell you, I won't speak to them because it would be heartbreaking. I also don't understand. You say you were in a dark room and you couldn't see. Then, I mean, who walks into a pitch black room? How did you know what you were hitting with the sword or knife if it was pitch black? How does one walk around in a pitch black room? And never mind, stab and slice someone 127 times.
And we are about to watch an Act 23 169 hearing out of the state of Connecticut. Now, what that means is that although he was sentenced to 55 years in prison for the horrific butcher of someone who he called a friend, he is getting a chance at parole because he was under the age of 21 at the time he committed the murder. And you heard correctly, not under the age of 18, but the age of 21. The state of Connecticut gives anybody, no matter how horrific the crime, a chance at parole, a chance at getting released before his 2051 release date. Now, the idea that someone could stab someone over 125 times with the sword, leave him to die, could then come up and have a chance of parole shocks me. And I think it shocks the parole board as well. Now, he shows up to this parole hearing not only trying to drag the victim under the mud by accusing the victim of doing horrific things, he also makes insane, bizarre claims about not having any memory of the crime, except when he conveniently needs to state that he couldn't see anything during the crime. It really is a bizarre approach, especially the fact that he's had an attorney sitting here with him that would have able to help him prepare for this day. We will also hear from the victims and from the state's attorney. I'll go over the appeal with all the facts of his case that they may not discuss in this hearing at the end. I'm also leaving timestamps for you if you want to skip over any portions of his opening statements. And with that, let's jump in.
Jose Colon Jr., 246695.
Thank you very much. This is a public hearing in accordance with Chapter 14, Freedom of Information Act, Connecticut General Statute 1-200, which applies to this procedure. Mr. Colon, if you have any questions concerning the above, please bring your questions to the attention of the panel at this time. Again, this is a public hearing. Mr. Colon, do you have any questions?
No, ma'am.
And are you willing to proceed with the hearing at this time?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you. So as previously stated, this is a Public Act 23-169 hearing. It's being conducted in consideration of a parole application for Jose Colon, inmate number 246695. Mr. Colon is serving a sentence of 55 years flat with no probation to follow for murder and conspiracy to commit murder. There is victim input in this case. There is also an offender accountability plan in place. It has been reviewed and shows that the offender has completed the following programs, which include domestic violence, anger management, tier 2, as well as people empowering people. Utilizing the statewide collaborative offender risk evaluation system, the offender's overall score on the RT falls within the low range risk for recidivism. Mr. Colon, this is now your opportunity to express to the board why you believe you should be granted parole, and you may begin.
Thank you. Good morning. I am extremely humbled and grateful for this opportunity I've given to speak before you today. I come before you today not as an 18-year-old adolescent, but a 48-year-old who now walks with the clarity of fully understanding the ramifications of my actions. I committed a worst act a person could commit. I took a precious life of another human being. Although I come before you with the purpose of sharing my life's transformation and rehabilitation, I would like first to take this opportunity to tell the family of the victim that I'm deeply ashamed and sorry for taking away their beloved son, brother, uncle, grandson, and father. I shattered their family and my community in a blink of an eye. I know that my words provide very little, if any, solace, for they are forever impacted by my impulsive and reckless actions. I understand that words will never reverse the damage or repair the pain I inflicted. I live with the torment every day of my life. Ever since my incarceration in 1996, I've dealt with bouts of depression, anger, and frustration, and guilt. After years of deep reflection, I see where my life has took a negative and destructive path that it did. My decisions and actions took away far more than just one life. 3 families and a community have had to find ways to rebuild around that tragic day. Hector, Kevin, and I were all young with potential to be family men and productive members within our community. But because of my disgraceful actions, many were harmed. As a parent now myself, I understand the feeling of anguish that comes from losing a child. My actions is unacceptable. I'm truly sorry. The painful results of my actions gave me more motivation to become a better version of myself, since I hated the person I'd become. I grew up with and without my father, and he joined the military, so he was not much around in my life, and forcing my family to move around a lot. It forced me to grow up fast. It was drilled into me that while he was away, it was my job to protect and take care of my family. Instead of helping my parents, I became the parent. And with my mother's drug addiction and continuous sickness, thus forcing my siblings and I to raise ourselves. When I was old enough that I had to get odd jobs in order to provide food and money for my mother and my siblings. Trying to keep my siblings in school and with 2 children of my own and 1 on the way, it became too hard to keep all these balls in the air. Stress was too much. I turned to alcohol and marijuana to dull the pain. Early in my incarceration, I received 4 Class A tickets. The last was for fighting, and I was put into segregation. The CO working at the time happened to see me with my hands over my face, knocked on the door, and slid me a pocket Bible. On the inside of the cover was a song titled "Onward Christian Soldiers." It brought up many emotions in me at that moment. As I read a few lines of the song, it reminded me of my grandfather. He was a devoted Roman Catholic, deacon of his church, and a World War II vet. I lived with my grandparents on and off over the years. He would read me the Bible, take me to church. He taught me right from wrong. He gave me my foundation in my faith. And seeing him at my arraignment, the look of betrayal and hurt and fear and loss, it hit me hard. But I had to push all those feelings down inside, for I had to face what was in store for me in the coming months and years. The song brought back his face, knowing the shame that I brought on my family, my community. It was this that I finally made the conscious decision to follow a better path. In 2002, I earned my GED, but would not have happened if it weren't for the efforts of my teacher, Mr. Westerman. When I wanted to give up because I could not get past my GED math test, I had so much doubt in myself. Mr. Westerman didn't give up. He pushed me and encouraged me to try harder and keep focused, one step at a time. Eventually, I passed my math section. If not for the positive encouragement by Mr. Westerman and guidance and mentorship, and putting a good word for me within the maintenance supervisor, I would not have gotten a job in maintenance, and all the success I have had in the DOC can be accounted to Mr. Westerman's unwavering belief in my potential. In 2003, I received a certificate in accounting and then became a tierman in my housing unit. In 2004, I got a job working in maintenance where I learned the basics of HVAC, plumbing, electrician, and masonry from my supervisors and my fellow inmate workers. However, there was more I needed to learn. At the suggestion of a coworker, I took domestic violence program. This program showed me that there are two sides to a domestic violence, the aggressor and the victim. I saw myself as both the abuser and the abused. Domestic violence showed me that how to take a step back from the situation, listen and wait for things to calm down, and then look at them with a clear head and open eyes. Anger management had the same overlapping steps, and that it's okay to be angry as long as I don't act on that anger. The use of these techniques in the workplace helped me many times at work. Attending Tier 2 program has helped me understand that I'm an addict as well. I've been locked up so long and away from my vices that I did not see myself as an addict. Listening to those who had hit rock bottom and continue to do so as they took responsibility for their own actions and taking the steps to true recovery was eye-opening into my own previous struggles. I was an alcoholic and addict to marijuana. I haven't had either since 1996, and I plan on staying sober indefinitely. People Empowering People was a fantastic program that directed towards people discovering oneself. And when I first took People Empowering People, I took it for granted. I did not see the potential it had to offer me, the tools on how to become a better person, brother, son, father, and member of society. I felt that I was too damaged to be helped. However, after COVID, I was able to take the program again, and I recognized the program's message and its importance. I decided to become a mentor in the next PEP program, a group. This time, I've learned the lessons that are important and which have helped me to become a better person, to become the person I am today. I've also taken CT VIP, Violence Intervention and Prevention Program, that debuted with the Honor Unit at Cheshire CI. This program has helped me see that I have untreated traumas and that with proper counseling and treatment and understanding my triggers, that I won't fall into the same traps of my traumas. I've worked for the Correctional Enterprises of Connecticut as a machinist from 2009 to 2018, and now in the science shop, graphic arts since 2021 to present. During this time, I've become knowledgeable in metal fabrication, vinyl application, silk screening, graphic arts design, while also learning how to operate various large equipment tools. I've worked on hydraulic press machine, bag sealing machines, basic woodworking, and the use of working tools in problem solving, such as a result of learning or working with these different machines. I have learned soft skills like critical thinking, communication skills, and time management. Starting in 1997, my journey through my faith has been long and hard. However, I have learned to incorporate many virtues such as honor, respect for human life, empathy, compassion, and altruism. I've learned during that I learned that doing what is right, no matter what, is what God wants from me. I have decided to dedicate my life to the Lord since then, volunteering in various religious services while also attending many religious programs such as much as I can. It has only given me greater understanding of how my actions affected my community. Respected members of the board, should I be granted parole, my re-entry plan is as follows. I would like to be paroled to a halfway house or to my father's home. He has a spare room for me. He is legally blind and needs someone to be with him to help him with his daily routine so that I may look for a job and housing. And while looking for a job, I plan on using my 15 years of experience that I've gained working for the DLC industries. These skills include graphic arts design, vinyl sign application, vinyl car wrapping, seal screening, and metal machine operation. While maintaining a full-time job, I plan on attending Goodwin University to earn my certification in welding. So a halfway house in Bridgeport will be ideal. Also, I plan on getting my CDL and apply for a job as a truck driver. Once I have a financial nest egg, I plan on volunteering my services to my local church and to the community outreach program, such as Ice to Beef, a New Haven youth development organization. I also will volunteer for church food drives, youth mentoring, and offer my services as a handyman to the elderly community. Looking back, I can say with confidence that I'm a different person than the one who entered the prison so many years ago. I have come to understand the pain and the harm I caused, and I'm deeply regretful for the impact of my actions on Hector and his family, my community, my family, and through my participation in restorative and rehabilitative programs like CTVIP and Tier 2, I've gained a deeper understanding of this impact. Will continue to work on making amends through my actions and growth. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Colon, for that statement. So in preparation for today's hearing, the board has reviewed extensively your entire file, which includes police report, the court transcript, your pre-sentence investigation, as well as your records from within the Department of Correction, everything you've done while you're there, to include program participation, work, disciplinary reports, education, and such. We also received many letters of support, and they are included in our file. So we're very well versed in your case. We do have some additional questions. When we're done with our questions, we'll hear from the Office of Victim Services. Your attorney will be offered an opportunity to speak, and should the state's attorney appear at any point during this hearing, they will also be allowed to speak. Okay, do you have any questions?
No, ma'am.
All right, we'll begin with my colleague, Mr. Pohl.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, Mr. Colon.
Morning, sir.
So thank you for your statement. There's a lot in it. Definitely have some other questions that I want to ask this morning. So this was probably one of the hardest cases I've read, to be honest with you. Why did you have an 18-inch Pakistani sword?
Well, I got it from Ivan Pagan and Danny Pagan, the brothers that's who I got it from. I had it so that way Kevin and I could scare Hector. And the reason being that at the time, Kev came to me telling me that Hector had disrespected the Latin Kings and himself and wanted to teach him a lesson. And so we went to an abandoned building, and I went in first. Hector came in second, and Kevin came in last, and he attacked Hector, stabbing him in the neck. And for myself, you know, the reason why I attacked him is because my sister had told me that Hector had forced himself on her. And I was very angry about that. And, you know, my job as as her brother was to protect her, to be there for her. And I wasn't when that happened. And I couldn't do anything about it. And I tried very hard to understand that, you know, everything that I went over, you know, I'm sorry. As a child, I was sexually abused.
Sure, I understand all of that. I want to come back to the instant offense, right? But why we're here,
Yes,
right?
yes,
So you had the sword to scare somebody because they disrespected the Latin kings, and there's something to do with your sister, right?
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
When you brought the sword with you, what was your plan?
It's just to scare him, to, you know, to make him, for me, to make him admit to what he did to my sister. I wasn't there intent to kill him, just to scare him. You know, I wanted to beat him up,
So then,
you know,
yep. Go ahead, continue.
I wanted to beat him up, but like I said, I was saying that for everything that went on, when, you know, I was going through, I blacked out and I attacked him and I took his life.
So the description that we have is stab, but there's also some things, there's reference to slice, things like that,
Yes,
that
yes,
happened here.
yes.
So how did that, how do you get from, I brought it to scare him, to 125 or 127 times?
Like I said, given my past of sexual abuse and what happened to my sister and the alcohol and the marijuana that I've been drinking for the past week, everything just came to a head. Everything just, for me, it just exploded. You know, it was too much pressure, and unfortunately, I took it out on Hector.
I mean, for me, I know what it's like when I'm in the kitchen and I accidentally slice my finger with a knife when I'm cutting something. But to undergo that many times, it's pretty hard.
Yes, it is. I live with that every day, that what I've done.
When you say you blacked out, how much of this do you remember?
Pretty much nothing other than what led up to it and what I was told afterwards from the report and my lawyer.
You remember leaving there?
I believe I did.
So you do remember leaving there?
Yes.
Do you remember what kind of condition he was in?
No, I do not. There was no lights in an abandoned building. It was complete darkness.
And you said you were under the influence of alcohol and marijuana at the time.
Yes, sir.
How much do you drink? How much, or do you recall how much you drank at the time?
About 3 bottles of hard liquor, 2, maybe 3 cases of Meister Brau, or it's a beer, and vodka, like maybe I think 3 bottles of vodka.
That was over a few days' time. Is that what you said?
Yes, sir.
And you remember going there?
I'm sorry.
You remember going there, but you don't remember what happened there.
No, I just, like I said, just we were partying. Kev came, found me. He told me what he wanted to do, and I had my agenda. But we went into the building. After that, no.
What was your job with the gang?
I'm sorry.
What was your job with the gang?
I had no job. I wasn't in the gang.
I thought you said that
Kevin
this was about a beef with the Latin Kings.
And that's between him and Kevin. Between Hector and Kevin. I'm not in the gang. I wasn't in the gang at the time.
So you received the Pakistani sword from a couple of brothers that were in the Latin Kings?
No, sir. I was at their house. I
They
was
weren't
at
in
their
the
house.
Latin Kings.
No, sir. I was at their house drinking and partying with them.
So you've read the reports, darkness or not, you've read the reports. What do you think that the victim went through?
Pain. Pain.
So it's a little bit more than pain. Yep. Pain,
Fear.
fear.
Fear. Pain. Fear. Just shock. Torture.
So that's torture is the only other word I would use to describe it is hell.
Yes.
Because it goes beyond, for me, it looks like it goes beyond torture. What do you think the family went through in the aftermath of this?
anguish, pain, loss, confusion, wanting answers, couldn't get any. Just horror, knowing that what happened to their loved one, that I caused it, and I couldn't, they were completely devastated.
So, and the other piece of this is, and that's, that's some understanding, although not firsthand, but the thing is to think what your family would have gone through if the roles were reversed.
I know that. That's what, and I will live with that, knowing that if the roles are reversed, I'll be in tormented hell, knowing that someone did that to my loved one. And knowing that they're alive and my loved one is not.
So I want to move on a couple of things. So you've had 8 disciplinary reports since you've been incarcerated.
Yes, sir.
The last one was 7 years ago. It was for possession of material.
I'm sorry, sir.
It was for possession of material,
Yes, sir.
pictures or whatever. And the one before that was in 2001 for violating unit rules. So in the last 24 years, you've had 2 nonviolent disciplinary reports. How have you been able to comply with the rules in there?
Just trying to, doing what it asked of me. And, it's not hard to follow. They set rules, follow it, and I've been doing so. To maintain my job, I have to, with the purpose of maintaining my job, I have to follow the rules. And that earned me to be a trustee, to be able to work in the shops. And yes, I have violated the housing unit rules in 2001 for a noise ordinance because I had my TV up too loud. Again, that was in Virginia, and down there it was what they call informal, and up here was a Class C. So even though I was in a different state, different rules.
Yeah.
So I paid my debt to the facility, and then came up here and was served another ticket and paid the sanctions for that, or did the sanctions for those, and then continued on from there until I received a ticket for 2018 for possession of explicit photos. It was found in a general area in my work area, and because it was basically in my area or near my area, I was served a ticket, and I did my seg time and was out and been ticket free since.
Okay. So if we relate this to the offense as well, because it's not easy being in Cheshire or wherever you are. There's beefs all the time going on.
Yes, sir.
So in your offense, you did something horrific.
Yes, sir.
And inside you faced, you've had to face some adversarial stuff. How is that? How is it that it's changed?
Well, I did face some adversary. I fought a couple times, and that was in Gardner and also in Whaley Ave in the county.
In the 1990s.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes. And I guess that you could say that was like the rite of passage to, because you have to prove yourselves. So I fought, went to SEG, and accept the responsibility for my actions, and against that.
But
While I was in
since then,
SEG,
yeah,
since then, I
continue.
sorry, go ahead.
When you were inside,
No.
what I'm trying
when I
to
was
get at, this is where I'm trying to get, right? You did something out there based upon disrespect and having to have somebody pay for something. And you come inside and you're in adversarial situations at times. How come there's not further violence here? What's changed? You follow what I'm saying?
Yes, lack of alcohol and substance and drugs, that was taken out of the equation. But also understanding that I didn't want to go down that path. I didn't want to continue to be a violent person. I made a conscious decision to be a better person, to move on, to be not who I was, who the person I was to become in here, to put me in here. Going through the trial, then through the sentencing, everything that I went through, I sat down and reflected on it, and like, it's not me. I see that it was not me. That's not who I wanted to be. That's not who I want to be in the future. So I decided not to be around people with negative thoughts, criminal-minded activities. I got away from all that. I stayed away from. I was able to read people and see who were people who were in good heart, good mind, who wanted to do good, who wanted to follow the rules, who wanted to be to progress in life and with good intentions. And that's what I surrounded myself with. I connected with mentors such as Mr. Westerman, Father Vila, Mr. Morris, men who walked in the light of knowing that taking responsibility of yourself and understanding what you did in the past and take the steps to change it, to accept it, but also never forget that this is where that put you here, but you have to move forward. And to move forward, you have to be conscious of every decision you make. Take accountability for everything you have done and move forward. And that's what I've done. I've worked hard to not be that person. Going to school, getting my education, maintaining my job, gaining skills, so that way, if should I be able to, return to society, be able to be an asset, not a burden on society. I learned all this in here from men who understand that I have a potential to be a better person, to provide and to do things for people in a good way.
So let's take a look at programming, and certainly the parole officer listed off some of the programming that's on your OAP, but programming goes beyond that, and everything isn't always listed on your OAP, right?
Okay.
So how long have you been in the honor program?
I'd say about 3 to almost 4 years.
And what do you think of the honor program?
It's run by the right staff, and it's a good program. It has strong foundation, but I think it can improve with more programmings to help individuals with reentry, more education for the technologies that are out there, and also more soft skills wherein, problem solving, critical thinking, time management, and accountability for oneself, as well as to the community itself in the program. Right now, we need counselors or facilitators to really show us what our potential is.
So additional programming, I honor fatherhood monologues group.
Yes. I completed only a portion of the course due that it was that individual, the facilitator who came in had a family situation, so he could not come back in and finish it. But the program the section of the program I did helped with public speaking and to understand where my role is as a father.
Okay. And then there's community partners in action. That was the art program.
Yes.
I Know I Can, the book club, the nonviolent communication, the things that carried, the Connecticut Violence Intervention and Prevention Program, stress management. And you did mention the CTVIP program. Are there any other programs that you took as part of honor that we haven't gotten down?
No, right now like I said, there are programs being created right now, but due to lack of facilitators, everything's on hold.
So there is opportunities in the hopefully near future to take additional programming within the honor
Yes.
program.
Yes, sir.
And one of the big things that we talked about that we haven't talked about really in programming here yet is you talked about your alcohol and drug use during the commission of this crime.
Yes.
So how have you processed all of that? I heard you talk somewhat of tier 2 and some of the things that you had considered there. Where are you with all of that?
I'm sorry.
Where are you with, addiction, a recovery plan, things like that?
I'm sorry, sir, but right now there's something going on with the screen, so I didn't catch that.
So you've talked about in your opening remarks
Yes.
How substance use played in clarifying some things. You also talked about how substances played a role with this. What I want to know is how have you dealt with that more specifically, and what is a recovery plan for you? What do you see happening if you were to be released?
Okay. While in here, I went to tier 2. I attended that program, and basically just maintaining my own sobriety in here by staying away from those who offer that stuff. I knew who they were. I stood away from them, and that's it. That's basically that in here. I know what would have brought me, and I didn't want to go down that path. That was behind me. I decided to leave all that behind. As for should I be released, continue going to meetings.
Have you gone to meetings in the past?
No, sir, because in the past I didn't believe I was an addict.
Okay, but while you've been incarcerated, have you gone to meetings?
Unfortunately, tier 2 was all that we had, and as for meetings, there wasn't anything set up for that other than tier 2. So we have they passed out booklets. We can write to medical if we have any, or if I had any issues, but I didn't have relapse issues due to the fact that I stood away from those who were trying to push those drugs. So all I had to really help me focus was my art, my faith, talking to my religious leader, Father Vila, talking to Mr. Morris, people that I had around me, good people that understood, because they themselves were are former addicts themselves. So we became a small group and talked within ourselves to help each other through if we had any type of urges.
Okay, and it's not about dealing with urges, it's about dealing with the way you live today, right?
Yes, sir.
And I think that you've fairly talked about that.
Yes, sir.
Right?
And go ahead.
So that's really important to understand now. You talked about the programs and the things that you have learned from them in
Yes,
your
sir.
open statement, which is really good. Are there any additional programs that you think would help you?
Yes.
What are
More, I believe if they brought in more trauma, because I'm suffering from untreated traumas, so more psychiatric help will be grateful, because at the current now that there's no relief in that aspect, because they will medicate you other than listening to you and help you go work through your traumas. And as much as that I would like to seek medical help here while in Cheshire, they're not equipped to do it. They'll just feed me medication that I don't think it will help me. Talking through my traumas, getting the proper guidance and counseling will help. And here it hasn't been. For me personally, talking to my religious leaders, talking to friends has helped me greatly deal with those issues. Other programs that will help myself and others will be more community based, where prepare us for what's going on out there, to give us a foothold in society.
So you did talk about a release plan.
Yes.
You said that you basically have two different plans. One is to go with your father. The other is to go to a halfway house. What do you think in terms of for you? What makes the most sense?
Halfway house. Halfway house, because it will give me the opportunity to reacclimate to society, to have the resources and connections through the halfway house and the DOC to go to Job Corps, to find a job, to access what is available, that will help me get on my feet. And from there, I will, get a full-time job, create a financial nest egg, so that way, if I could have my own place, get a car, continue to, going to meetings, to maintain my sobriety, to, to be an asset to society, because I'm an able-bodied person, and I want to work and earn a living and provide for those around me, my community, with the skills that I've learned.
Okay. Is there anything that you think that you would need that's not been mentioned in your release plan?
I mean, there's a lot of situations out there that I have not encountered since I've been locked up. So there's a lot of stress and situations that I have not encountered like the normal person has. So I believe that if I do come across a situation, say like if I lose a job, I know that I can go to a job center to, obtain another one. But I know there's situations where that there's stress, a lot of stress that I know I'll be under to, I guess what I'm saying, sir, is that whatever is out there and whatever that I'm facing, I know that I have my sisters and my father and to fall back on. But I believe that what I've learned, that whatever I face, I can face with them in my community.
Okay. So you, as the chair said, we received a lot of support, several support letters from your family, DOC staff, the chaplain, the associate chaplain, and several incarcerated people, many of whom are honor program people and such,
Yes.
positively affected by how you've conducted yourself in the facility.
Yes.
All of the letters attest to your positive contributions that you've made and such. Which of those letters do you think was most impactful?
The one from Randy Morris.
And why?
I've known the man for the past 15 years. He's a Marine. He knows about honor, discipline, integrity, and by associating with him, he has given me those same values and attributes. He's shown me through his actions that I can walk the same way.
Okay, and that was a really good letter. Another letter that you received that is really for me impactful as well is there was a DOC electronics person.
Yes, Mr.
His entire 22-year DOC career, most of which knowing you.
Yes,
Mr.
Mr. Lambert.
Yeah, and had no real stake in the outcome here, but he said, my honest assessment is that he has accepted responsibility for the crime that caused the death of the victim and has come to terms with the loss of his freedom for that crime. While Jose Colon was in my employ, I found him to be extremely well-behaved, hardworking, and eager to learn, and a willingness to keep busy and productive. He never once betrayed my trust or took advantage of me during his time with me. I also got to see a soft side of Jose when he found out that I had a nephew with an incurable disease. He inquired about the health of my nephew nearly every single day, and seeing Mr. Colon tear up a little each time told me there was a caring individual inside. So
Yes, sir.
that's somebody that you spend 8 hours a day with every day for a significant number of years.
Yes, sir.
You know, so it provides a little input as well. And I only have just a couple more questions. So there are 3 different ways that this hearing could end. A grant where we set stipulations that you must comply with in order to remain in the community. A denial, and you would remain incarcerated at least until 2049 when you could be eligible for community release. And a denial with a rehear at some point in the future. If just say we reheard your case in 5 years, what would you do with it with the next 5 years?
Continue doing what I'm doing, improving myself, maintaining, my job, get more education in people, in people skills, and just what's available for me in maintaining my sobriety, continue to be an active member within my society here in Cheshire, doing the right things and staying out of trouble.
All right, and then the last question I have. Do you understand that this case, in comparison with other cases, if you're sitting on this board right now, and knowing what you know about this case, and anticipating the victim's family, what the victim's family has gone through, what would you do?
Weighing all the facts and seeing that sifting through everything and seeing the progress that that individual has put forward, and listening to the victim's family It is a hard question to answer. I'll be honest.
So you understand the position that we're in.
Yes, sir.
So
Yes,
I
sir.
just want to commend you for what you've done while you've been incarcerated. You know, this was a horrific offense. But what you've done, your discipline inside your the programs that you've taken and how you've been a positive impact to the DOC community. I appreciate the growth that you've shown. And Madam Chair, I don't have any further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Pohl. Before we go any further, I do want to ask, is the state's attorney for this case present? If so, can you please introduce yourself? No.
Attorney Gary, are you currently present?
It is *6 to unmute on the phone.
Do you think they joined? Okay, I just want to make sure that she's able to participate. All right, we'll move forward and see if she can jump in at some point. Okay, Mr. Cologne, I think you covered with my colleague all of the programming, your disciplinary infractions while incarcerated, and the letters of support that we received. I do want to go back and clarify a few things for all of us to try to get a better understanding. And you attempted to go down the road where you were upset because the victim, or you say the victim forced himself on your sister. So I have to ask, if that were really the case, why wouldn't you immediately confront him man to man? I mean, you were friendly with the victim. You were classmates, so you knew him. Why wouldn't you immediately, upon discovering this information, confront him with it?
I could not find him.
But it was very easy for you to find him the day of this offense?
Because to be honest, I wasn't really looking for him after that. Like I was saying, that I had other things going on in my life. As much as it pained me for what happened to my sister, other things were happening. My girlfriend at the time, she had a miscarriage. So I was dealing with that, dealing with her pain, and trying to cope with the loss, but also what was going on with my family. My mom just relapsed with her addiction, and my father was basically non-existent at that time, just constantly working, and left me to deal with all the chaos that was happening in the house. So yes, I should have found him, but at that time, I put it out of my head because I had immediate things that happening. My sister didn't want me to do anything about it. She said, just let it go. And given what was going on, I had no choice. You know, it just was out of my head until Kevin showed up and told me where Hector was at.
But do you understand why that wouldn't make sense to me? I mean, if you had that level of anger to do what you did in this offense, then I would think you would immediately go looking for someone who did this to your sister, a person that you love. And if you're dealing with all these other things, how do you have time to go hang out with your friends and you know, then go to this abandoned? It just, none of it makes sense to me. I have to be honest with you, Mr. Cologne, we read a lot of files. You know, in the many years that I've been here, I've read a lot of files, none as disturbing as this, none. Was beyond horrific. This things that you see staged in a horror film, never in real life. I can't possibly imagine what all the parties involved, but most especially the victim's family, goes through reliving this in their head, what it must have been like, this offense, and your own family included. I suppose if you truly can't remember, you're the lucky one, right?
No, I'm not.
Well, you know, to have to replay this in your head over and over. I read about the injuries, and it's just unimaginable. We read all of the details, and it was a very difficult task. I have to tell you, I won't speak to them because it would be heartbreaking. I also don't understand. You say you were in a dark room, and you couldn't see. Then, I mean, who walks into a pitch black room? How did you know what you were hitting with the sword or knife if it was pitch black? How does one walk around in a pitch black room? And never mind, stab and slice someone 127 times.
Replaying everything again. At that moment, I wasn't myself. I wasn't there.
No. Okay, I'm not asking for an explanation for what you did. I'm asking for an explanation for how this could happen in a pitch black room where you can't see anything. If it were truly pitch black, why wouldn't when the victim realized what was going on, just run? You couldn't find someone in a pitch black room. That doesn't really make sense. How could you see him to inflict these injuries? I don't understand. I'm just asking for an explanation to make it more understandable for all.
With respect to the family, who I know can listen to this, it was his screams. I'm being, knowing, that's the best way I can explain is hearing his screams.
And if you don't recall any of the event, how are you explaining this?
Thinking back, just trying to piece everything together. Just over the years, like I said, I've been tormented with it. Thinking it back, even though I blacked out, my mind still remembered, what I did. It's how would they call it? Compartmentalized, or this.
Yeah.
I mean,
well,
it's
that's
not like
very different. Blocking something out and compartmentalizing is very different than not being able to recall because you were using drugs or alcohol or whatever. Those are different things. You understand that?
Yes, but that's the best way I can interpret it to tell you,
Okay.
Like I said, the situation, I was there. I know what I did what I did, and I can't take it back.
Yeah.
It was horrible, and
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to answer your question, but it's just.
No, I understand. Yeah, I have a better understanding now. Will it make sense? Never.
Never. I understand.
I mean, it's so much easier to read that, it was gang related and I shot someone and that's it, it's over and done with. But the torture of it all in this case is so much harder to really comprehend. All right, so we'll move on from the details. Now you say you weren't involved in the gang, but you had some SRG affiliation tickets early on. What were they for?
The first one was a card I went through the mail, and it had some gang affiliation on it, and it had my information on the card and a false address on the top corner for the mailing address. So when it went out, it came back, and that's how I was brought up on a ticket for gang affiliation. And it was deferred for 30 days. And I was 3 weeks into the deferment when I got into a fight with the local street gang, an Asian street gang. And because of that, I caught the fighting ticket. The DR coordinator reactivated the first ticket, and that sent me to SEG and also to Gardner.
And what was that fight over?
He threw sour milk on me.
Why?
Well, in the cell, I don't know if you've ever been in, you'll never be in the cells, but the cells side by side, there's an empty light socket. So as I was in the cell doing my classwork for school, he was basically spitting spitballs through the light socket.
Mm-hmm.
So in my hair. So when I felt something and I went like that, and I seen it and I looked in and he was on the other side, he laughing, and and he tried to do it again, and I hit the mixture straw into his throat. And that's when he got the door open on his side and threw the sour milk through the cell window, and it hit me and went all over me. He and I never had any dealings with each other than, wreck or something like that, because the language barrier, he's Chinese, I'm American, we never really talked. But because of his childish acts, that's what happened.
Okay. All right. I understand you applied for a sentence modification.
Yes, ma'am.
When did you apply?
This year?
In January.
Yeah, in January.
And when did you receive the result?
By mail, I say about a week.
So shortly after?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. And that was a denial.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. When you went for that hearing, the family members of the victim attended and spoke?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And how did that make you feel?
Low. I felt hurt because what I did to their family, what I did to them, to Hector, I was horrible. I felt horrible because I know I could, no matter what I said or do, will never bring him back. At the time I didn't know he had a son, but now I know he had a son, and he had to grow up without his father, and that was my fault. That was my cause. I did that to him, and I'm very, very, very ashamed, for what I put him through and his family, because he had to grow up without him. And I live with that every day.
Okay. You took the case to trial. Why did you reject the offer and opt for a trial?
Well, given that was my first arrest for a major crime, I had no knowledge of the law, so I had to defer to my lawyer, and so I took it to trial.
Okay. All right. Thank you for speaking with me. I'm going to turn over to my colleague, Ms. Berry.
Madam Chair, I don't have any questions. You asked,
Thank you. Okay, so at this time, I will ask the Office of Victim Services to facilitate input in this case. Ms. DeJesus, thank you for joining us.
Good morning, board members. I do have several family members, one via Teams and two via speakerphone. I'm going to begin with the one that I have on my speakerphone. This is your opportunity to express to the board your wishes and your concerns. I am to remind you that you are only to address the board members and not the inmate, and you may begin. So I have heard the questions that the board members have asked. And yes, it was a very brutal and heinous crime. I can't, in my wildest dreams, imagine how someone could do such a thing to a young man. And they were high school, they were friends. The defendant used to also go to his house. So they knew each other. I want to state that for the record, that they knew each other other than school. And he would go to his father's house and sit there. I want to read a letter, please, that I have written. This letter is submitted to formally and empathetically register our absolute opposition to any motion for early release, parole, or reduction of sentence for Jose Colon. I am a grieving family member of the victim, Hector Nieves Jr., regarding his brutal murder in 1996 by Jose Colon. The incident was a premeditated and deliberate act of violence committed by the defendant, Jose Colon. The defendant was convicted of this heinous crime. Our family is gravely concerned about the possibility of any hearing that would consider his early release. The murder of my stepson, Hector Nieves, in 1996 did not end in 1996. It fundamentally, I'm sorry, No, shattered. take your time. Shattered the foundation of our family and continues to inflict trauma today. This heinous, premeditated, and deliberate act of violence by Jose Colon devastated my children, who lost not only their beloved brother, but also their father, who was unable to cope with the loss and subsequently abandoned the family. The overwhelming emotional stress from this trauma caused me to suffer a nervous breakdown, and I have been in therapy continuously for the past 28 years. I'm sorry. I need a moment. Yes, please take your time. This is not a trauma we recovered from. It is a profound, lifelong burden we manage daily. While I understand the legal argument regarding age cognition, I firmly believe that Jose Colon, at age 18, was fully aware and culpable for the premeditated nature of his actions. We are writing to state our absolute unwavering opposition to any consideration of parole or reduction in sentence for Jose Colon. We as a family and a community have witnessed the law fail repeatedly when individuals who commit heinous premeditated crimes are granted early release only to reoffend, repeating the cycle of violence. Our family's devastating lifelong pain compels us to ask the court and any relevant board to deny Jose Colon early release. We must prioritize protecting other families from experiencing the catastrophic loss and permanent trauma we have endured since the murder of Hector Nieves Jr. at the age of 17. Hector never had the chance to live out his dreams. Jose Colon committed a premeditated act of deliberate violence and must be held accountable to the fullest extent of his original sentence. Although no legal action will bring our loved one back, he needs to pay for the heinous crime of violence imposed on Hector. Thank you for your support and service to victims. We urge your office to formally and with unwavering opposition, I'm so sorry, I lost my place.
We urge your office to formally register our absolute and unwavering opposition to any motion for early release for Jose Colon. We request that our family's unified opposition be brought before the relevant parole board of court, the Nieves family.
Thank you very much. I just asked Ms. Nieves if you could just mute your phone.
Sure.
Thank you very much. I will now ask the sister of Mr. Nieves to unmute your microphone. This is your opportunity to express to the board your wishes and your concerns. I am to remind you that you are to address only the panel members only, and you may begin.
Good morning. All right. We, the family of Hector Nieves Jr., strongly oppose the release of inmate. Hold on 1 second, sorry. Inmate 246695, who was convicted of brutal murder of our brother. The impact of this crime has never ended for us, me or my family. The pain, the fear, the trauma continue to affect our daily lives. I suffer from PTSD, from phobia, from knives and sharp objects, social anxiety and nightmares, fear for safety and emotional distress. These feelings are reignited each time parole is considered. The idea of inmate 246695 being released brings back overwhelming memories and fear that we might once again be forced to relive the worst day of our lives. He made a choice that destroyed the lives, that caused permanent damage. He made the choice. He was his friend. He organized to go to that building that he could have beat him up. But you went and got a sword. You went and made sure that you destroyed his life. That you finished it. Not 6 times, 127 times you killed him. You killed him and you left him there. Yes, he has finished a few programs. Of course he has, because he has all the time to do it. For that, he should consider himself grateful that he is able to open his eyes and breathe air. My brother will never get that second chance at life. Yet you think you deserve to live a life of freedom because you're rehabilitated? How does one call himself rehabilitated but can consider him? Sorry. Let me
It's
calm
okay.
down.
Take your time. Yeah, take your time. It's okay.
How does one call himself rehabilitated but still consider heavy death metal as his favorite music to listen to? Dark horror, aggressive gore music that speak of all the same things you did to Hector. Your favorite book, Sword of the Truth, is a book about one who seeks to control the world and unleash evil upon the living. Now tell me, how does that sound like someone who's rehabilitated? You never were remorseful. You still aren't. A person who wishes evil upon people have no mercy for life. And there is no indication that releasing inmate 246695 would ever serve justice to me or my family.
Thank you.
Sorry. My father still can't make it to come to services because he suffers from PTSD. he suffers from complicated grief. He has sleepless nights because he's the one that had to identify my brother's body. He has lack of sleep. He's losing his memory. His ability to live a normal life while you plan yours. He missed out on 29 years of moments that we should have had filled with joy, birthdays, holidays, chance to have see his 9 grandchildren grow up. It has been so painful for him that he can't even tell my little sister that he has a brother. She has a brother. She only found out in my wedding preparations in 2022 that she had a brother. This crime has destroyed our family. The trauma continues as we raise our children. I have raised 3 children by myself. I was a teenage mom. I stepped up and I had to be a mother to my sisters while my parents died that day because the defendant decided he wanted to kill my brother. Please, for the sake of justice, safety, and respect for all the victims and their families, deny parole. Thank you for taking time to hear my voice and considering the lasting impact this crime continues to have on all of us. Sincerely, Hector's Keepers.
Thank you. You may mute again. Board members, I will now ask the maternal aunt to unmute, *6 to unmute your phone. The maternal aunt, for the board members' for your information, did speak at sentencing as well as the sentence modification hearing.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. So I'm Antica Paso. I'm Hector's maternal aunt, and I'm also a retired correctional lieutenant. So being in the system, I know that these jailhouse lawyers prepare these inmates and tell them what to say, what to write, what the board needs to hear, how remorseful they are. So I'm sure that this speech that he gave was written by somebody else. That being said, I strongly oppose this offender's early release on parole. The nature of the crime was so severe, he didn't just murder Hector. He brutally, with a sharp force object, stabbed him 127 times. And let's not forget that he also hit Hector over the head with a pipe that it was too dark for him to find, not to mention kicking him while he was down. He was stabbing him over and over and over again. How do you stab somebody that many times you can't see? But that wasn't enough for him. That wasn't enough. He just had to keep hitting him and hitting him and hitting him. He hit him so hard over the head with the pipe that they found metal fragments in his skull. We had to say our goodbyes to Hector from a picture because of the grotesque of his injuries that his so-called friend did to him. And all because he felt disrespected. I can't even imagine what he would do to someone he didn't know or like just because he felt disrespected. Here we are again, reopening old wounds. 55 years, let alone 30 years, is not enough because of the traumatic lifetime of pain and suffering that he's put our family through. This will never fade. Hector Jr. will never get to know his father. His granddaughter will never get to know his grandfather. And all because he took that away from us. So I am respectfully urging the board to deny parole at this time. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much. Board members, we will now hear from Hector Nieves' mother. This is your opportunity to express to the board your wishes and your concerns. I am to remind you that you are to address the panel members only, and you may begin.
Hi, I am the mother of Hector Nieves. I stand here to strongly oppose any consideration of parole. A boy's murderer couldn't sleep last night. I was knowing I would have to face my son's murderer. Since his death, sleepless nights have became my reality. The nightmare never ends. This man didn't just brutally kill my son. He destroyed all our lives in the process. He must pay. What he did, anything else is a failure of justice. I cannot even begin to understand why are we even here. This monster did a crime, but it feels like we are the ones to know. Why do we have to fight so hard for God's correction? We did not commit it. Why are we begging for justice when he already received his sentence? A sentence which ended it. Who is my son's life ended permanently? This man needs to pay for his awful crime. I beg you, with tears and a broken heart, do not grant him parole. My son begged for his life. And evidence shows he fought very hard. But this animal showed no mercy. Instead, he kept on and going on stabbing my son repeatedly 127 times, to be exact. And now he's expecting mercy from us, from the system. Do you think he deserves to be home with his family celebrating holiday gatherings when I have to visit a grave with my son's name on it? Well, I live every day reminding that a monster took him from us. Think of his next victim. Think of the life he could destroy if he is released. The judge denied him in January for a reason. She clearly saw the brutality of his crime. The hurt he has caused, nothing has changed. He is not ready. He does not belong anywhere near freedom. He obviously didn't think his sentence should be reduced, much less parole. He belongs behind bars where justice demands his stay. Anything on this side of the doors is freedom. And if he walks through the doors, I truly believe the system will fail my son. And hold on. The only thing I have left is a picture of in my living room. I constantly remind that my son is gone because a monster decided it was okay to take his life. One thing is certain, he may have taken Hector's voice, but he will never take ours. We will always fight for Hector while our emotions will forever run deep. When it comes to this case, this does not change the facts. And the facts are clear. This man brutally took a life and destroyed generations to come. Hector would have been a grandfather today. His granddaughter would never have the chance to know him, just as his own son never had the chance to know his father. Please do not display our pain, but understand that our feelings are not the only reason we stand here. The facts speak for themselves. He stabbed a 17-year-old boy 127 times. He had 127 opportunities to stop. He didn't. Instead, he left his body to bleed out and never once sought help. He must serve full sentence. He was given, which was already far less than what the magnitude of this brutality to his act deserves. This man deserves to stay and pay for the crime that he did. This man had planned this. This man was in my house with my son Hector a couple of weeks before he did this. He came to the rain to my house and he stood there in my kitchen like he was Hector's friend a couple of weeks before this happened. He was planning this for a very long time. I know he was. I begged that this man stays behind bars and pay for what he did to my son. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Capuzzo, is there anyone there who wishes to give a statement?
Yes, I have Hector's brother, Stephen, here.
Stephen, this is your opportunity to express to the board your wishes and your concerns. I am to remind you that you are to address the panel members only. You may begin with your statement.
How you doing today, board? Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak on behalf of my family and my brother, who is no longer with us due to the actions of Mr. Colon and Mr. Soto. Growing up, my brother was my Superman. I have a vivid memory of things we used to do together, playing King of the Hill on snow mountains after trucks would plow our neighborhood. We would go sledding. He would teach me how to throw my hands, play fighting with me throughout my early childhood. I wanted so much to be like my brother. I idolized him. Everyone in my neighborhood did. He was a cool kid, in the middle of being a young man into adulthood, and we used to want to walk like him, dress like him, talk like him. Just wanted to be like him. I remember that day. He moved with his dad in the Waterbury, crushed me because that was my guy. But he made it easy because he would come back to my mom's house frequently to check in on us, make sure I was being the man of the house since he wasn't there no more. He used to bring his friends with him to meet my mother and family. I remember vividly one day Soto and Colon came over, and they were, giving my mom hugs, telling her how good her food was, cooking was, laughing and giggling with me and my sister. And Hector thought these guys were his friends because if he thought anything else, he would have never brought them home. Never brought them home that day. On the morning of April 22nd, 1996, it started off as a normal day for me. I go to school, come home, go to my cousin Junior's house. We were playing something on the computer, and his house phone rang. And he comes in the back room and says, "Yo, your brother died. You got to go home." And I'm like, "Yeah, whatever. Let me finish playing my game." Because I didn't understand what he just told me. A few minutes go by, and I just break down into tears. I run out the room. They come running around the corner, seeing my mother being loaded into an ambulance because she completely broke down from the news of my brother's passing. I didn't know what to do. I just cried and cried and cried. I went to my grandmother's house and just sat there and waited. I was 11 years old at the time. I'm 41 years old now. Still the pain every time something like this comes up. And the reason being is I never got closure. I never got closure from this because he stabbed my brother over 127 times. Why couldn't you just shoot him in the head? Take him out nice and easy, nice and quick. My brother lay there for hours just bleeding out. As the two of them bragged to their friends how they just went on a mission. I never got any closure because I never seen my brother's body. The stabbing was so brutal that it was a closed casket. It was a closed casket. For years, I thought that it was a prank, that my brother was just wanted to get away, so he faked his death. I had to go to a mental hospital for months and get mentally evaluated because I was sitting waiting for him to come home. But he never showed. This led me down the wrong path as a juvenile, in and out of juvie, doing crimes as a young adult, praying I'll be sent to the same prison they were in, just so I can figure out why and get my revenge somehow. But I'm glad I never happened, because my mom would have lost 2 sons because of your actions. Your actions affected so many lives. You didn't have to do Hector like that. Y'all was supposed to be homeboys. He trusted y'all. This wasn't no ordinary killing. This was some dark stuff. Even the detective that worked my brother's case said in his whole entire career as a peace officer, he has never seen something so gruesome. People like you don't deserve to ever walk these streets a free man. 55 years wasn't enough.
Never 30.
Enough time for you. And you're just about halfway done through the sentence. You should do at least another 20. Think about people as long as my mother is on this earth, you shouldn't be able to walk as a free man. At least give her that, because you took a piece of her from her. She could never get back. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I also want to say, I'm sorry. That was what I read.
Okay.
I wrote. I also want to say, this is so traumatizing for my family to keep going through this year in and year out. Like, we have to deal with this. The wound never closed. It's been, 28, 29 years since this occurred. It still hurts to say it every day. I still have vivid dreams. I had a dream about 3 nights ago where Mr. Colon and Mr. Soto was just standing there waving knives. Like, these are things that I go through that I don't really share with people, but every single day it's the wound's still there. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you to the board for giving me the opportunity to speak, and hopefully you guys come to the right decision and remand this man to serve the rest of his time out. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, board members. Ms. Capuzzo, if you could hit *6 on your phone to mute again. Thank you, board members. That's all Victim Services has.
Thank you to all of the victims' family members who came forward and spoke today. We know it must be so difficult, and we really do appreciate your words. Thank you, Officer Wingers.
Yes, thank you. So at this time, we're going to have the attorneys. They will be afforded opportunity to make a statement. I do believe State's Attorney Joy Gary has joined us. Attorney Gary, before you proceed with your statement, do you mind identifying yourself for the record, stating your name, juris number, and business address for the record?
Yes, Madam Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. Good morning, Madam Joy Gary, juris number 49. I do. Thank you very much. It took great strength for the victim's family members to provide input today. It is clear this crime still has a serious impact on the victim's family, and the state takes the same position as the victim's family. The state opposes the early release of Mr. Colon. We believe the sentence Mr. Colon is currently serving is appropriate for the severity of the crimes he committed, and he should serve what is remaining of his sentence. I will not state all the facts of the case since the board is already familiar with the facts. However, I will note Hector Nieves lost his life due to the actions of Mr. Colon. This case involved an extremely violent attack on the victim. We understand the crime was committed when Mr. Colon was under 21 years of age. We do acknowledge the programs he's done while incarcerated, but this crime was too serious, extremely serious and violent. So the state does oppose the early release. And given the serious nature of the crime, the impact of the crimes on the victims, the state opposes this early release. And there's nothing further from the state, and we would ask that the board deny this application.
Thank you very much, Attorney Gary. At this time, we have Attorney Smith. Attorney Smith, if you have any final remarks you would like to make in regards to this case, you may do so now as well.
Yes, thank you. First, I would like to thank the board for taking the opportunity to conduct a thorough and diligent review of this case. I understand it takes a significant amount of time. I've had the pleasure of knowing Jose for the last 18 months, and I'm regularly impressed by his self-reflection, his introspection, his work ethic, and the high standards that he sets for himself. And I can confidently say that after reviewing ample records and meeting with Jose numerous times over these last 18 months, that he's an ideal candidate for parole, and he'll be an asset to any employer and the community if released. In the 20 years that he's been incarcerated, Jose has taken significant steps towards rehabilitation. He's taken full responsibility for his past mistakes, and he's used his almost 3 decades of incarceration productively to reflect deeply on the harm he caused and make profound changes in his life to get himself on the right track. It's important also that Jose embarked on this journey for change decades before the recent legislation was enacted. Unfortunately, Jose cannot undo what he did that terrible day, and he understands the magnitude of the actions that have had on Hector Nieves' family and Hector Nieves himself. But what he can do, and what he has done over almost 3 decades, is make a steadfast commitment to change. He's only obtained 2 tickets in the last 24 years for nonviolent offenses, and largely, with the exception of the first year of his incarceration, he has largely remained ticket-free. Jose has the self-awareness to surround himself with like-minded people like himself who want to stay out of trouble and who want to stay on the right path. A few years into his incarceration, Jose obtained his GED, and he met a teacher who changed his life. This teacher was a beacon for Jose. He was a rare person in Jose's life who told Jose that he believed in him, that Jose was smart enough to accomplish things, and said that he was more than what he did on that terrible day in April of 1996. Jose went on to take his GED and pursue education in various other classes over the years, and has maintained steady employment in the DOC. Jose has completed numerous programs in the DOC that has helped shape his way of thinking. The most influential ones have involved nonviolent conflict resolution, stress management, addiction management, and tools that have helped him recognize his triggers and process the traumas. Jose is an incredibly motivated and hardworking person. He's consistently obtained, as you've seen, glowing reviews from supervisors over the years, and I can certainly see why. Jose's work ethic, his attention to detail, and motivation are impressive. The skills he has learned in plumbing, electrical work, HVAC work, all those skills are going to be helpful that will translate to the outside world if released, and those are in high demand. If released, Jose would not be returning to the community alone. He has the support of his family who are willing and looking forward to helping him successfully reintegrate. He's developed a strong reentry plan. It includes stable housing, employment, continued education, and some volunteer work in between. These factors are known to reduce the risk of recidivism and provide structure for someone to successfully reintegrate back into the community. Jose, as well, is especially eager to reach out to Ice the Beef, an organization devoted to helping troubled youth. And Jose is very eager because he doesn't want to have those children end up where he did. And he's told me many times that if he had a mentor like that, maybe he wouldn't have ended up in the situation that he was in. Granting parole in this case would not only recognize and give credence to the real progress and rehabilitation that Jose has made, but provide him with a chance to show that rehabilitation is possible and that second chances are possible. Jose is prepared to show that he can live in the community and be a law-abiding citizen. And I respectfully ask the board to grant Jose parole so his demonstrated growth and change doesn't go to waste behind prison walls. I thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you for your statements, Attorney Gary and Attorney Smith. So at this point, the panel will enter into deliberation. Everyone is free to listen. Please do not interrupt, and we will come back shortly with our decision. We'll begin with you, Mr. Pohl. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, I mean, this is the most horrific case I've ever had while in the board the last 6 years. You know, just the background on it is really difficult. Mr. Colon read or answered the questions that I had gained more insight into what was going on there. Certainly we acknowledged some substance abuse issues, some trauma and such that was going on back then when he committed the offense. And we went through, what he thought that Mr. Nieves went through. And obviously we heard what the family has gone through. Mr. Colon has availed himself of, many different programs. And is still actively involved in things in programming there. Disciplinary reports in terms of the disciplinary background. Since his sentencing in 1999, he has received two non-violent disciplinary reports. And he answered how he feels that he was able to do that, which is way different than the thinking that went into this offense, and shows maturity and such. He's talked about, his release plan, what he would like to do in the community, how he thinks he can be of assistance through Ice the Beef and their programs like that, how he feels that he can reintegrate and such. However, where I am is, very definitely I heard the state attorney, I heard the family, and this it's obviously even 30 years into this sentence is not something where I believe that Mr. Colon is ready to be released back into the community. I appreciate the last couple of questions that I had for him. One of which was, given our position, so I really believe that Mr. Colon understands where we are. And certainly, this is a very difficult place to be for everyone involved. I'd really like to hear what other board members have to say in this case.
Thank you. So I agree with everything you've said. It is clear that Mr. Colon has used this time to better himself, to take programming, and to educate himself. We see the letters from inside. We do see some growth. Of course, everybody grows, hopefully in a positive direction over time. He was 18 years old the time he committed this offense. But after today, I'm left with, more questions. And today we hear a different story, that it was pitch black and he couldn't see what he was doing. That's the first time, we read a lot of documents. The first time I read that, and on one hand, he can't remember anything, but on the other hand, we're getting some details. And I don't accept his explanation for why he committed this crime. It's just, not only does it not make sense, but it would be more than an extreme overreaction, even if it were true. He mentioned some trauma that he still needs to work on. And that certainly is a part of the rehabilitation that we look at when we're making these decisions here today. But the overall extremely serious nature of this offense leaves questions for me as to whether he would benefit society and whether he would be a risk or not, especially if we haven't addressed the trauma that led to this in the first place. So for me, it would be a denial here today. And the only question would be whether we bring it back or not, since there's 25 years left to this sentence. Ms. Berry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Unfortunately, I have when I read through this kind of stuff, I can see,
Right, yeah.
imagine just what this child, he was a child, went through. And to hear Mr. Cologne say that although it was dark, it was his screams that led him to do it even more. Just added it just made it even more vivid. It's not funny, and by any means. I don't know if I'd ever be willing to allow Mr. Cologne to return to the community. As you stated about his trauma being unaddressed, that's one of the things that I wrote down, that, that's a big piece of his rehabilitation. And while I appreciate his efforts towards rehabilitation, he's doing exactly what he's supposed to be doing in there. He's supposed to be working on himself. He's supposed to be trying to be a better person than he was when he came into prison. All of that, and I'm not trying to negate the progress that he's made. All of that still, in my opinion, does not rise to a level of a person deserving to return to the community. And I say that because of the nature of this crime and the pleas of the victim's family and everything that they've experienced. It took everything in me not to cry, just listening to their stories. I don't have to go through it twice. I know his co-defendant also received a sentence modification. I'm sure they participated in that as well. Out of respect for the family, it's a no for me. I do not have him returning. That's my position, a denial based on nature and circumstances and the injury and impact to the victim.
Thank you, Ms. Berry. Mr. Pohl, back to you. Any further thoughts?
The real question, I hear the victims in this case.
Yeah.
Mr. Colon's 48 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And if he completes the sentence, because there isn't any reductions for good time or anything like
No,
that.
right.
He would be 74 years old when his sentence is completed. He's 72 years old when he's eligible for community release. But again, it's like having the family have to go through this again.
Right.
It's just it's difficult. And, I'm just not sure.
Right.
I understand. Honestly, this is a very difficult situation to be in. Our positions are very unique in that we are supposed to be looking at suitability. But when a crime such as this gruesome, 127 times, and the victims have had to participate in not one, they took it to trial. And it's their right to do that. But just over and over again.
Yeah.
They're trying to move on with their lives. And
what I'm struggling with is what would the benefit be of a rehear?
Yes, there wouldn't.
What more could he possibly do?
The level of prison level that he needs to be in. It's like I don't think there's really.
And he said,
addressed.
No.
Yeah, because he said even if he does go to mental health, all they want to do is medicate him. You know, they don't want to listen to him or work through any of that stuff with him. So,
Yeah.
um,
Okay. So lose-lose situation. Everybody loses here. All right. In the matter of Jose Colon Jr., inmate number 246695, I'll make a motion to deny parole with no new hearing for the following reasons. The nature and circumstance of the instant offenses and the injury and impact to the victim and the victim's family. Is there a second to the motion?
second,
All in favor?
I,
Aye. Thank you, everyone, for your participation here today.
Thank you.
Thank you. This concludes the Public Act 23-169 hearing for Jose Colon Jr. in the number 246695. And it is 11 p.m.
Madam Chair,
We'll take a 10-minute recess before we start our next case.
No, we here. He's got to do his time.
Yes, thank you.
Se para los pelos.
Thank you.
I am so happy that we were gifted with that hot mic to hear the victims be thankful, so appreciative of not having to show up to rehear. How shocked are you? I know I am stunned. I mean, Connecticut Parole Board to essentially sentence a man to spend the next 25 years in prison when he will be 72 years old when he becomes parole eligible. That's something I frankly never expected to see the Connecticut Parole Board to do, especially with Mike Pohl on the bench. When this hearing started, and we'll go over the appeals of the case, just want to get a few things off my chest. And you can kind of sense it in Mike Pohl's tone, because he's always got the rainbow and butterfly and rose colored glasses on, and you just knew that something was extraordinary about this crime. And it wasn't the DA that spoke that sealed the deal. I thought that actually her performance was underwhelming. It was the victims. It was the victims that left mic drop after mic drop. And it was also the parole board that, surprisingly, I thought caught him in very clear lies. It's just a cowardly thing to do, to show up all these years later and to start by saying that this man did something to my sister. It's like, shame on you. Shame on you. And they call him out in each and every lie. Well, if that happened, you could have confronted him right away. He was your friend. And he has this whole ridiculous story about how he didn't know he was going to be there. It was a pitch black. Oh, he goes off with, I can't remember anything. I was so drunk. He lists all the things he drank. He lists which we'll go over in the court documents. He tried hiding his crime. But they catch him out, and they did this, and they don't do this enough. And they just caught him in the bold state lie and she set him up. She did it on purpose. I think it was panel member Paige. It was Barry, Paige, and Pohl who were on it. I think it was Paige that set him up. And she asks him, how did you actually, you're saying that it was so dark that you couldn't even see him. How did you hit him so many times?
You couldn't find someone in a pitch black room. That doesn't really make sense. How could you see him to inflict these injuries? I don't understand. I'm just asking for an explanation to make it more understandable for all.
And then he says really the macabre thing, which is just terrifying to think that this is even something that he would say. And he says, It was the screams.
With respect to the family, who I know can listen to this, it was his screams.
He was hitting the sounds of the screams. And then she calls him out and says, well, how do you remember that if you can't remember anything? How can you remember it was dark if you can't remember anything? And it was just the most pathetic attempt. You know, it's like all these years later, and he tries to go with, I just don't remember anything because I was blackout drunk. And on top of it, he did this to my sister, so I was going to get him back. And it's like, this is not a normal 127 times with a sword and a metal pipe. And they said he bled out. You know, really does. His attorney looked very uncomfortable. You can see in body language, sometimes it seems like they're buddy, and sometimes it seems like she's like leaning to one side, he's like leaning to this side. And as you notice, he's not allowed to have access to a pen. I'm pretty sure we've seen inmates with pens. He's I guess still considered too dangerous to have one because she's the only one with the pen the entire time. And then the tissue. I'm waiting for him to do a fake cry. Waiting. There's nothing. He has the stare of a man who could stab someone 127 times. And eventually he takes a tissue out of his pocket all the way at the end, almost as if on cue. And it always makes me wonder. The attorney says, well, I've known him for 18 months. I had known him for 18 months. And it's like, what are you really doing in these 18 months? Do you not prepare your client to show up and say, like, don't show up and say, I don't remember anything. Like, that's your strategy? And also, oh, that was right. He brings up how he was, things were done to him when he was little, and that's what created this rage in him. And I love it. I think also it was Paige that just shut it down. It was like, just shut it down. Like, we're not going to go down gaslit road with you and make you the victim. And it was like, that was also a strategy. He thought, well, if I bring that up and I make myself the victim, and it will justify the rage as to why I stabbed this man this many times. I mean, 127. The levels of anger, and it's like, and the family victims called it out too. How is it possible that he's rehabilitated when his favorite music is death metal and his favorite books? And they called that was great. I wonder where they got that information from. But it's someone that is clearly dangerous. But it was shocking to me that the parole board didn't give him a rehearing in, let's say, 10 years or something, and that they had empathy for the family who was just 9 months ago at a sentencing modification rehearing. So they keep going through this, and apparently his co-defendant went through one. So the family has to keep showing up and reliving this. I wonder if we're going to see his co-defendant's parole hearing sometime soon. Let me go over the appeals with you. So, a jury found the defendant, Jose Colon, guilty of 1 count of murder violation. It's interesting that he didn't even get a life sentence. I don't know why this happened. They sentenced him to a term of imprisonment of 55 years on the murder and 20 years on the conspiracy conviction to run concurrently for a total effective of 55 years. The defendant's appeal that the judgment, again, I don't know why. In trial, he's found guilty, and somehow a judge doesn't give him life. Was that the maximum and legislation allowed at the time? I don't understand this. Now, a jury reasonably could have found the following acts. Sergeant Fisher of Waterbury Police Department testified on April 22nd, 1996, the Waterbury Police received an anonymous telephone alerting them to a possible homicide at the abandoned building of Ridgewood Street in Waterbury. When the police arrived, they discovered the bloody body of the victim. The victim had been stabbed several times in the head, neck, arms, and torso, also appeared to have been beaten about the head. A metal pipe and a small buck knife covered in the blood and hair were discovered at the crime scene. An autopsy, that this wasn't the main murder weapon, is my understanding. Let's continue though. An autopsy conducted revealed that the victim had approximately 125 sharp force injuries. He had cuts and stab wounds over the head, the face, the front of the trunk, and the back of the arms and legs. The victim also had his arms, hands, and wrists several cuts that were consistent with defensive injuries, as though he had been attempting to protect himself from the blows. The autopsy revealed that the wounds had been inflicted by the buck knife and the metal pipe discovered at the scene, and that another, much larger weapon also had been used in the attack. Michael Silva, a forensic crime technician, described the victim's wounds as appearing to have been inflicted by a knife that was large, approximately 8 inches long, with a fat blade with brass type of guard to it. Silva also testified that the cast-off pattern of the blood and the crime scene illustrated that the victim had suffered severe attack, that the assailant was swinging very, very violently at the victim, and that the wall behind the victim showed signs of actual misses. That occurred when the assailant swung this weapon against the wall. He also testified that the hair pattern on the wall behind the victim indicated that he was struck several times in the head. It was the opinion of McDonough and Silva that as a result, the combined sharp force injuries of the victim led to death over a period of time. So none of the wounds were fatal, which I think means that he wasn't being stabbed, he was being slashed the entire time, which again, if you just were to take your hand and go like that, try to do it 120 times. And you think about this again, and you think about the terror that the victim was in. The victim would have been fighting for his life, and yet this monster cannot show any emotion. He sits there in this parole hearing with a stare that is frankly scary. And the words that were used by the parole board, horror film. This was a horror film. This was a thing of nightmares. And he sits there with this look of just nothing. And it's like the parole board member almost breaks down and cries hearing the victims, and yet he just sits there again with nothing. It's just, there's no humanity there. And there are those who say, well, he's this is what happens to someone who's been in prison half their life. He's institutionalized. They're taught not to show emotion. Well, we've seen enough parole hearings where we've seen that people can show emotion, even though they've been in those situations. We know better. We've seen thousands of hearings, but I'll still see people write those things in the comments as if, they probably have a PhD. You guys probably have a PhD. You probably know better. They know better than all the thousands of hearings that we've seen. Lieutenant Michael Rickey of Waterbury Police Department testified that on April 23, 1996, the day after the body was discovered, police officers began questioning local residents about the homicide. After being shown a police photograph, the victim's father identified the victim as his son. Once the victim was identified, Ritchie and several other officers interviewed the area residents in an effort to identify the individual who had made an anonymous call to the Waterbury police. They interviewed Kevin Soto and his girlfriend, Edith Santos, who appeared to have been acquainted with the victim. Richie requested the couple come down to the police station the next day to listen to a recording of the unidentified caller. While Soto was at the station, Richie realized that it was his voice on the 911 tape. Soto then admitted making the call, and after being issued a Miranda warning, disclosed his role in the crime and implicated the defendant as a principal actor. Wow, that's how they caught him. He testified that Soto's disclosure, several officers were dispatched to Kennedy High School, Waterbury, to bring the defendant in for questioning. He was at high school. Shortly after his arrival and after being issued a Miranda warning, the defendant admitted to the officers his participation in the murder. You know what's funny? Who else here got started in Law and Order, like for their crime? For me, it was Law and Order. And I watched a lot of Law and Order, but I always was annoyed. I always thought that it was fake because, you know, almost every episode in Law and Order ends with a confession. And I would roll my eyes at that point and be like, I get it. They have to make like whatever long half-hour episode or whatever, and they need it to end. So they do confessions, but it's lazy. It's lazy. People don't confess. But I was wrong, because when I read these appeals, the vast majority of them end in confessions. So it's true. And I don't understand it. It's like you have everything to lose. Just, like, why would you confess your whole... But detectives are good at, that was something interesting, I thought. Like, really, so many confessions. Richie testified that after taking a written statement for the defendant, police officers spoke to Soto a second time about the homicide, also interviewed Santos. Santos gave the police two different arguments regarding the events of that day before, one after the defendant placed under arrest. Initially, Santos did not implicate the defendant in the murder. She testified at trial that when she gave her first statement to the police, that she had been afraid that the defendant was still out in the street. Once she knew the defendant was in custody, however, she disclosed to the police everything she knew about the murder. Thus, during the second interview to the police, Santos disclosed that she was with Soto's at his mother's residence the day of the murder. She observed Soto to leave the residence and the victim then return about 1.5 hours later. Santos told police that when Soto returned to his mother's home after spending time with the defendant, he was acting strangely. When she asked what was wrong, Soto revealed to her that he and the defendant had stabbed the victim. Soto then told Santos that they had to go to her apartment because the defendant was there. When Santos arrived at her apartment and saw the defendant, she could see that he was full of blood from head to toe. The defendant took a large sword out of his sleeve and showed it to her. It was also covered in blood. Santos got the defendant a garbage bag for his bloody clothes while she showered and changed into clean clothes. Santos testified that after speaking with Soto, she asked the defendant if the victim was dead, and he responded affirmatively. Santos then testified that she and Soto and the defendant left her apartment, and the defendant deposited the bag of bloody clothes behind an abandoned building. When Soto and Santos parted ways with the defendant, they decided to call 911. Good for them, right? But that was the anonymous tip, I guess. Now, two additional witnesses provided information on the large sword. Santos described in her statement that the police, Ivan Pagan, testified that one day of the murder, the defendant came to his house and took a Pakistani sword. Now, I was Googling Pakistani swords, and I got so many different images. So I didn't. That's why I didn't show an image, because I don't know. But let's see how they describe it. That he was holding for a relative. Ivan Pagan testified that the defendant returned approximately 1 hour later in different clothes and gave the sword back to him with a dent in the tip, covered in fresh blood and hair. The defendant told Ivan Pagan that he had killed Hector from up the street. Ivan Pagan took the sword, cleaned it with alcohol and a rag, wrapped it in tape, and placed it in his closet. Later that evening, when he hid the sword on the roof by the side of his house, covered in branches, Ivan Pagan... By the way, I want to point something out. I really appreciate that they use first and last names in this appeal. So many times they'll switch to just last names, and it becomes so confusing for me. Ivan Pagan testified that his fear of the defendant prompted him to take the sword and hide it for him as instructed. Danny Pagan, I guess because his brother is okay. Ivan Pagan's brother testified that when he saw the defendant speak to Ivan Pagan on April 22nd, 1996, he testified that he observed the defendant meet Soto up the street and then place the Pakistani knife in his pants. When Danny Pagan asked the defendant where he was going, the defendant answered that he was going up the block on a mission with Soto. Later that day, Danny Pagan saw the defendant return to his neighborhood and speak to his brother. Ivan Pagan later told Danny Pagan that the defendant revealed to him that he had killed the victim. The next day, Danny Pagan saw the defendant speak to the police and denied that he was a Cujo, a name the police learned the defendant was called on the street. After speaking with the police, the defendant approached Danny Pagan and told him that he and Soto had killed somebody with the sword and instructed Danny Pagan to move it from its initial hiding place. Danny Pagan testified that after his conversation with the defendant, he moved the sword from the roof where his brother had hidden it, wrapped it in a black plastic bag, and placed it in a nearby abandoned garage. It's so funny how these morons let's hand the murder weapon around to as many eyewitnesses as possible. Let's, instead of throwing it out, let's just keep hiding it in more and more places. Like, they're really brain dead. I mean, we see the dumb criminals. I guess the smart ones don't get caught, right? That's the problem with this. It's like we just we only see the dumb ones. Mark Deal, a Waterbury police officer, took a statement from the defendant that read into the record at trial. In his statement, the defendant stated that he met Soto on Hillside on April 22nd, 1996. Soto, a member of the Latin Kings gang. So this was brought up too, the whole gang thing. No, I'm not. Oh, okay. Soto, member of the Latin King gang, told the defendant that the victim had disrespected the Latin Kings nation and that they had to work him over. The defendant stated that he and Soto approached the victim and asked him if he wanted to smoke a blunt in an abandoned building on Ridgewood Street. The defendant walked into the building before Soto and the victim, but turned around when he heard the victim say, "Oh, Kevin, did you do that?" The defendant stated that when he turned around, the victim was holding his throat. When the victim took his hand away, the defendant stated that he saw a lot of blood coming from the victim's throat. Soto had pushed the victim to the floor and shut the door. The defendant then stated that Soto passed him the knife and he stabbed the victim in the chest. When the victim resisted the attack, the defendant punched him and swung at him with the knife, while Soto beat him with the long metal bar. The defendant stated that he remembered stabbing the victim approximately 5 times before Soto said, "Let's get out of here." The defendant is Jose Colon. So the defendant stated that the victim was still moving when they left him. After the defendant left the scene, they went home to Santos where they cleaned the victim's blood off themselves and changed their clothes. In this statement, the defendant identified Soto as the participant in the killing and described the murder weapon and clothing. So as you can see, this is completely 1000% different than when it happened. This seemed to be some type of retaliation gang thing. But yet, don't worry, ladies and gentlemen, he was protecting his sister's honor. Right. Dragged the victim through the mud. Okay. The jury began deliberation on October 26, 1998. On October 27, 1998, the jury returned to verdict guilty on all charges. At the sentencing phase of the trial, the defendant filed a post-verdict motion of judgment of acquittal. I'll put the link to this in the description. I don't know how he didn't get life. What was the legislation back then? I mean, he was found guilty. I just need to roll out if this wasn't a judge taking it easy on him. Guilty on all charges. Well, maybe they talk about it here. What else am I missing on this case also? I feel like there were so many mic drops. I thought the parole board did great. And also I think what the parole board deserves credit for, Connecticut, is they let the victims speak as long as they want. They do not say, wrap it up. And for all the faults that Connecticut has, they do that very right. And if you want to see more hearings like this, Act 23-169 hearings, there is a playlist for it. I really appreciate these hearings because you get the attorneys. It's very adversarial, and it's like a law. I mean, in a sense, this person was just sentenced to spend another 25 years in prison. I know that's not what happened. He can't appeal this, but I mean, this was a massive outcome that we don't see very often at all. What was the legislation? Let me just ask. If you're not following me on Twitter, give me a follow at Mandoo 9541369. What was the maximum allowable sentence for murder in the state of Connecticut in what year was this? 1996. Standard murder 60 years, and murder with special circumstances life. So that's interesting. He got 55 years, which is not even the maximum for what they could have given him. And that's by calling it a standard murder. Why was it not a special circumstance, which would be like a capital felony? I mean, stabbing someone 125 times you think would have made a special, but that's just interesting. That's the things about the law. What's the maximum now in Connecticut? I'm curious about this. But what is the maximum today? I wonder if they raise it. Standard murder 60 years, life special circumstance. Look at that. That's so interesting. So, and what's also interesting is that when people say, what's the difference, 60 years and it's life is life. But as we've seen in the system, it's not true. I mean, not only do you get your appeals, but one day he will get out. And however you feel about that, he will be, I mean, again, so he'll be 72 parole eligible, 74 if he serves his full time. Can you imagine? He at that moment just found out that he is going to spend the next 25 years in prison. Maybe he should have taken some more of that fake crying acting classes. But it's like on how do you show up to your hearing and say, I don't remember anything. I blacked out, except for the parts I didn't black out. And also not even to know to say, how did you do it if you didn't? Well, I heard him scream. And with that, I'll leave you with the final words from the victims.
How does one call himself rehabilitated but still consider heavy death metal as his favorite music to listen to? Dark horror, aggressive gore music that speak of all the same things you did to Hector. Your favorite book, Sword of the Truth, is a book about one who seeks to control the world and unleash evil upon the living. Now tell me, how does that sound like someone who's rehabilitated? You never were remorseful. You still aren't.